Okay, today we're going to talk about the PT320 pistol grip grease gun. And first thing I want to do is go through the different parts and pieces of the gun just to familiarize yourself with it. Uh, the product comes assembled in this manner with the head on the barrel. This is the pistol grip part of the gun, so that's where that comes from, that description. The grease gun head. This is the air release valve, which will come in handy for purging air out of the grease cartridge, or if you bulk feed it. And then over here is the 4-inch pipe. So out of the box, the pipe is disassembled, so you'll need to assemble that onto the grease gun head, and you can typically do this by hand. Just get it nice and tight by hand. Seems to work really well. The other part is the plunger handle, which is here on the bottom. This is what you pull back to load a cartridge in, and we will go through explaining a couple of things on the next clip here with the locking plunger feature, and we'll go through loading the grease gun. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is disassemble the PT320, and we're going to take a closer look at the components inside the grease gun and learn a little bit about how things work. So to disassemble it, simply just rotate the barrel in a counterclockwise motion, and it will unscrew itself from the grease gun head. Once you do that, you can then unscrew the end cap, and we're going to pull the plunger out of the grease gun barrel, and we'll talk a little bit about its functionality and features. So this is an actual locking plunger, and how it works, it's pretty simple. Although you will have to familiarize yourself with the functionality, how it works, and that's the reason we're disassembling it, so that you get a better understanding of that. So what we have here is, this is the plunger rod, and this is what you actually pull down inside the barrel to lock it in place, which allows you to then load a cartridge in the barrel. But there's one important step when you're doing that you got to make sure we follow, and that's locking the plunger on top of this plunger bracket. So in order to do that, I'm going to be turning this rod like so at the rear, and inside here are some ears that are on top of the rod, which you'll see. And once I position them through these holes here, it's like a puzzle, and then I turn it, and then I lock the plunger rod on top of this bracket. That's very important to do out of the box. It's going to allow you to get the grease cartridge all the way in the barrel for loading purposes. Okay, I showed you how to lock the plunger rod on top of the plunger bracket, which is this area here. It's locked above it now, and this is the position it needs to be in when loading it with a grease cartridge. Now I'm going to show you how to lock the plunger rod underneath the plunger bracket, and you'll do this in the loading process, and also if you encounter a pocket of air inside of the grease cartridge, you'll lock this piston rod underneath and then actually push the plunger manually into the grease cartridge. So to unlock the rod, simply just turn it a quarter turn, and the rod immediately springs back underneath the bracket. And then I'm going to turn it a quarter turn again, and now it's locked underneath the plunger bracket. And this is the position that you want it in to push the plunger into the cartridge. And it's more of a touch and feel type of interaction with the grease gun. You've got to kind of feel your way and feel that it's locked underneath. If you don't turn it enough, you can actually, it'll slip through like so, and it won't lock itself under the plunger bracket. Okay, to better understand how you turn the piston rod handle here at the bottom when you're locking and unlocking, it's a simple motion of just a quarter turn, and now I'm just going to turn it back to the position I had it in, and now it's locked underneath the plunger bracket up top. To lock it above, I twist it back, kind of feel my way through there. It's above the bracket, and twist it back, and now it's locked above the plunger bracket. Okay, now that we've familiarized ourselves with the internal workings of the grease gun, we're actually going to go through the process of loading it with a grease cartridge. So I've got the unit disassembled here, and the first thing we want to do again is make sure that the piston rod or the plunger rod is locked above the plunger bracket. So in order to do that, I got to kind of touch and feel and twist the plunger rod through the opening there, the puzzle, and now the rod is locked above the plunger bracket. So we're ready for loading the product with a grease cartridge, which we'll do now. Pull the plunger rod back, lock it in place underneath. Now I've got a brand new cartridge of grease here we're going to open up. You see how it fits nice and flush on the top here. Now I'm going to retract this just to show you, if you do not lock the plunger rod above the bracket and you try to load the grease cartridge, you're going to see it's not locked above, it's underneath. So when I pull that rod back and I put in a grease cartridge, you see that it sits above the lip of the barrel here about a half an inch. So that's going to cause an issue when you're trying to put the head back on the grease gun barrel. You simply can't do it. That's the whole reason you have to follow these instructions with locking the plunger rod above the bracket like so. And now we're just going to go ahead and pull it back again. Place our grease cartridge in. Assemble the head to the barrel. Nice and tight. Now I'm actually going to go through the process of unlocking the plunger rod. I've unlocked it, and now it's pushed entirely into the cartridge of grease. But the next step we want to follow is actually what I showed you earlier, locking the plunger rod under the bracket, and then we're going to go ahead and purge the air out of the grease cartridge and get the plunger set into the grease cartridge so that we can pump grease. So in order to do that, I'm going to pull the rod back. You see how I get that drop there? I'm going to do a quarter turn, and I should be locked underneath the plunger, or underneath the plunger bracket, which I am. And now I've depressed the air release valve up top here, and you should have heard that purge of air come out of the grease cartridge. Now that I've done that, I can unlock the rod, push it into the barrel, and I like to hold this air release valve down so that I can get a full incremental pump of grease through the head. And it'll spit a little bit, but eventually it won't, and you have successfully loaded the PT320 with a grease cartridge.